Hello and welcome to Satori. So today's pose is all about helping all of the muscles around low back, hips, and upper legs relax. This is a variation of legs up the wall pose, but adjusted for whenever we're feeling tight and tense around low back. So for this pose, you're going to need a chair and a bunch of blankets. And I have some that are softer and some that are more firm for better support. Softer ones for padding and firmer ones for support. So feel free to pause the video and gather your supplies before you continue. Now, starting to set up your pose, you want to put the chair right at the tail end of your mat. And I really like to cover the metal edge of the chair just so it doesn't cut into the backs of the knees. I'm going to use a softer blanket, and this one I fold pretty thinly so that it doesn't add extra height to the top of the chair. I'm going to drape it kind of like so it covers that edge. And I'm actually going to fold that blanket a little bit so the back of the chair has a tiny bit of a lift. The reason for that is most chairs are built so that the back of the chair is slightly slanted back, and we want the opposite effect on our legs. So the back of the chair is going to have a little bit of cushion. The next step is to set up the support underneath the pelvis. And depending on the length of your thigh bones and the height of your chair, you may or may not need this extra blanket underneath your pelvis. I will show you how to do this with the blanket, and if you get into your pose and find that it doesn't really work for you, you can always take it out. So, easy peasy. The firm folded blanket, and mine is folded so that it has about 3/4 inch thickness. Plus minus doesn't really matter. Just figure out what works for you. And this will take some experimentation. I'm going to pop it right in front of the chair, and usually you put a loose end of that blanket toward your upper back. So I'm going to flip mine around just like so. So this is where my pelvis is going to live. Now, ideally, for this particular pose, your pelvis is slightly higher than your heart and your head. So we're not using a thick folded blanket for under the head. I am going to have the slider blanket, so this is pretty soft and it will compress a whole lot. So I'm using this blanket to put under my head. Additionally, if you have spare blankets and you know that your shoulders are tight, you may want to have them on hand, and I'll show you what to do with them. So now getting into the pose, I like to sit on my blanket. So the blanket that my pelvis is going to be in, I like to sit on it right away so that as you get in the pose, you don't have to play around with it and get it right. One leg goes up, other leg goes up, and most likely for you, you're going to have to thread your toes right into under the back of the chair. That goes just so full length of your calves are supported by your chair. From there, it's a flipper down. You're coming back down and you're going to slide your head support so it just touches the tops of your shoulders. It's not underneath your shoulders. It's just touching the tops of your shoulders. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. And this is where we pause and see if we could actually relax. Once you get into this pose, check to see if your legs are too high. The feeling that you will feel if your chair is too tall and your legs are too high is that you're kind of hanging on the pelvis. You want to have your pelvis really firmly supported by the ground, so you're not hovering in the air by any stretch of imagination. The other thing that you can do is you could take the sides of your head support blanket and just kind of scrunch it around your neck. So you make a little bit of a cradle for your neck to be more comfortable. This works really well for folk who have some discomfort around the neck. And then as far as the arms, so naturally for this pose, the arms like to fall apart, kind of like so. So they'll lay on the ground. We turn them up just so that the front of the body opens and we can relax the shoulders back. However, if you have pain or tension around the lower ribs, between the shoulder blade and such, this will probably not work for you as well. So one of the ways to alleviate that discomfort and tension is to bend your elbows. You can fold your hands right on your belly. See how that feels for you and whether or not you can relax here. If this feels yucky still, that's where that little extra spare blanket comes into play. So you can pop that blanket to be right underneath your elbow. And I like to tuck it right into my armpit. So the whole back of my shoulder and the elbow are both supported. So what you're trying to get is for your elbow to be at the same height as your shoulder. And then you could still fold your hands on your belly and relax. This is the basic gist of the pose. So I will come out of it and then tell you about the cherry on the top here. To come out of the pose, you want to bring your heels over to the end of the chair, and then it's just kind of a roll sideways. Once you get yourself onto your side, spend a minute or two here, especially if you took a while to be in the pose. And then use your hands to press yourself up and all the way up to a seated position. So some of the embellishments that we use for the pose, you can add some weight across your shins. It really helps to settle the tension around the low back. Some people just use a bolster placed across the shins to add just a tiny little bit of weight. Another nice feature is to drape either a towel or an eye bag across the eyes. Blocking out the light really helps to down regulate the nervous system, and also that slight bit of pressure across the facial bones will help your nervous system to settle down. Try it out. Let me know how it feels. And of course, I'm here if you have any questions at all. Till soon. See you soon. Namaste.